Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales expert and leadership coach, and I'm very, very excited and honoured actually to bring on one of my favourite former clients and one of the most active and helpful people in my community, the lovely Diana Rickman. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm very excited. So I've known you, and I was thinking about this morning before we jumped on. Now, I'm actually pre-coffee, so I'm not entirely sure how human I am right now. But I was thinking about this morning, and I was thinking that I've known you, it must be coming up for 2 years or just gone 2 years, in fact.
Yeah, I think it's a bit longer than 2 years.
Yeah. I really do. So I want to kind of share a little bit about what I know of you. And I remember back to, let's say, maybe 2.5 years ago, potentially. Neither me nor Diana are very sure on this, but I remember when I first met you and you were a completely different person from the person you are right now.
I was a hot mess. Let's be honest.
And I remember working with you and I remember thinking, oh my God, you're adorable, because you are. You're just, and I was saying this to somebody the other day, you actually have your own podcast. And I listen to it because your voice is just so relaxing. I'm like, oh, that's so nice. And I can just listen. But you're one of those people that people just warm to, and you're really warm and friendly. And it was so funny because 2.5 years ago, I remember you coming to me and being like, yeah, I want to have this business. And you had this like real determination and real drive there. But you're like, I'm not sure I want to do the bits that require me to be visible. And I remember saying to you, well, it's kind of like a trade-off. If you want a business, you've got to do it. And then within like a year, you went from charging like $20 an hour to $1,000 packages. And it just went up and up from there. And you then created this podcast and you were out getting on video and you were creating this massive community. And I was like, I remember Diana very, very distinctly saying, actually, that's not my jam. Thank you very much. But I'm going to sit over here in the corner and be quiet.
Yeah, I think what I said was, I just want to help people.
I think I have the recordings from our sessions somewhere. I'll pull them out one day. But it is that kind of thing, isn't it? Where you had this kind of like exponential rise of confidence and it just boomed. And since then, you've been on a bunch of different podcasts, you've written blogs for different places, you've been working with the local community, you just had this massive, massive move. So Diana's living in New Zealand, which I'm very, very jealous about, but you had this huge move and you were like, yeah, it's all just going to be great. And I look at you and I'm like, every time I talk to Diana, she's like, yeah, things will just be great. Things will just be fine. And I believe you when you say it. I'm like, oh, Diana she just does this stuff. And obviously you are a big EFT fan and advocate. You know, that is the bread and butter behind really what you do. And honestly, I mean, we did a live video back when Blab was still a thing, RIP.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Where we did some EFT and you kind of helped me use it. And I still do. I still use it. I still get on a plane. It drives Sam crazy because every time I get on a plane, I'm doing, and you guys can't see this, but I'm like tapping my fingers. But I'm doing this thing and he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But it still really helps.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I mean, it is just a tool, but it is a great tool, and use it with intention, and you can move mountains, really. Yeah, but it has to be used with intention. Well,
this is the thing, and I think, you know, watching your kind of huge trajectory, and it's been a really huge positive trajectory. You know, I kind of see how you're making it work with other people. Because, you know, we both know that I'm very skeptical of the woo or anything that I can't touch, see or hold. But it's been amazing. So tell people, what's the kind of formal bio really of what you do and who you help?
Okay, so I mean, I did say at the beginning I was a hot mess, and that lasted for quite some while in terms of deciding who I was going to help. So for a very long time, I just led with this thing that, you know, I'm an EFT practitioner, emotional freedom technique. And as we all know, you've got to really be a bit more specific if you want to attract people to you, because people don't know who you're helping. And so at my heart was this message about, even if you hit rock bottom, things happen to you and you don't know where to turn, there's always an up. Keep looking up. And so that's where the podcast came from. Mm-hmm. And that's really the line that my business evolved along, which was helping people to turn things around, but not in a life coaching way. It's far more specific. I help them with stories that they've got stuck in or on, things that have happened to them, sometimes many stories together, but it's about taking apart those stories so that they don't forget them, but they no longer affect the decisions they make now or for the future. They don't get stuck in that story. They don't get stuck at that time in their life when the memory was created. And as my business developed and I started working with different types of clients, and I have worked with men, women, children, I found I had a real calling to work with women who had either had a miscarriage or had had a difficult pregnancy. And some of that came about because I started working from a practice room at an antenatal center. And so although that wasn't my idea at the beginning, more and more I was seeing and having women referred to me because they just weren't enjoying their current pregnancy because of the memories they had of the previous one. Or in some cases, they wanted to have another baby and just didn't feel that they could go through that again. And then, of course, just the trauma of having lost a baby at whatever stage. But usually I'm working with women who've had an early miscarriage up to about, say, 25 weeks. And it's just helping them to step away from that story. So there's a distance between what that story means to them emotionally, and then they can make decisions about whether they go on to have another baby, or more importantly, if they are pregnant, it means that they're not carrying that extra stress, which you really don't want to be dealing with when you're pregnant. You know, it's not good for you and it's not good for the baby. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
It's hugely valuable though. And I mean, sounds really, really wrong, but I was reading a book the other day. I'm obsessed with Tudor history at the moment. That's my current thing, all right? So at the moment, I'm reading all of the Philippa Gregory books and like Alison Weir and that kind of thing. And it was really interesting to me to learn that Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's first wife, for anyone who isn't really up on their Tudor history, had about 6 miscarriages. You know, really went through this hugely traumatic time trying to, you know, give birth to the heir of England, as it were, and went through all of these hideous miscarriages. And subsequently, his subsequent wives did as well. You know, Boleyn had miscarriages, obviously then was beheaded, so it wasn't really that much of a problem for him. But, you know, one of his wives died in childbirth. And the kind of thing that they're coming back with now is saying that scientifically he may have had a genetic predisposition to something called Kell disease, and that meant that actually it was really, really difficult for his wives to give birth. But the amount of pressure that they were under, they really could have done with having somebody to help them on that journey, right? Because it was either like, have this baby or have your head cut off.
Although I have to say, I'd probably have been burnt as a witch at that time, you know, so let's not go into that. You know, let's face it, I tell people tapping on parts of their body is going to help them feel better.
It's one of those things, isn't it? I had an ex-boyfriend once who his parents were homeopathic therapists, and I remember meeting his dad for the first time, and he said, I'm just gonna touch your chakras. And I remember thinking, I'm not entirely sure what a chakra is, or if my boyfriend's dad should be touching it. Like maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe that's very, very odd experience. But nevertheless, I think the work that you do is so valuable, and it's really, really interesting to watch you work, because obviously in the Dotties community, which you're part of, we have 4 people who specialize with infertility as well. And watching you all network and, you know, the work that you do, it's just supremely valuable. And I can't imagine, you know, what it would be like if we didn't have support for people who are going on that journey, who are finding it really difficult, because it's one of those things that it's so prevalent. Everyone wants you to have a baby. Everyone wants you to, you know, start a family and all this kind of thing. And when you can't, it can be really, really difficult to try and get away from that in today's society.
Yes, and I think, you know, I mean, you're talking about the Tudors and those poor women trying to conceive the heir to the throne, but I think the stresses and the sense of guilt and the trauma that comes from it is the same, you know, throughout the ages, really. I mean, it's a hugely personal thing, and you can't help but feel responsible as a woman for what go right and does go wrong. And, you know, it's not just about empowering women going forward, it's about allowing them to grieve and to come to terms with what happened,
Mhm.
and to in some way not take responsibility for it, that it really is just one of those things that happens. And whilst that's not helpful and healing at the time to be told that, what's also not helpful and healing is to hold on to that belief that you must have caused it in some way, because that's the first thing I hear from every woman I speak to, is that, even though the evidence is there that they didn't, they're pretty sure that they must have caused it in some way.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I do think that that's a much more female perspective than a male perspective. I think that women do have this need to find answers and always to internalize the problem and direct it straight back at them. And I notice it when I'm talking to like my male clients versus my female clients, or even when I'm talking to my male friends versus my female friends. If a male friend goes through a breakup, he's kind of like, well, she just wasn't great and that was it. Whereas when a female friend goes through a breakup, it's very much about, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better to make him stay or to be the person that he wanted to be with? And I think it is one of those things that's just really, really prevalent in terms of self-confidence and the way that we actually, society shapes us. I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think also pressure comes from outside as well to be perfect and to conform and to just be what you see as being the perfect mother or perfect wife or perfect woman, really, so that all comes into it as well. I've got this female body, surely I should be able to just create a baby and it should all go swimmingly because it does in the movies, so there's lots of things at play here.
Oh yes, Disney has a lot to answer for.
yeah.
So as to having been hot messes together, how can I help you today? What's the question that you're bringing?
So my question is about, it's sort of a two-part question really, because it was how I was at the beginning, but also as I'm now transitioning, I've moved to another part of the country and I'm having to really get focused again on where do I go with the business and how do I reestablish. And I'm very good at scheduling and planning, coming up with things to do, but I'm very good also at getting sort of bogged down in that. And so my question is, how do you turn a really awesome schedule and plan into a profitable one? What steps can you take so you make sure that you're recognizing and focusing on money-making activities rather than just having this great big to-do list? And then you keep that balance of all the admin that you have to do and then the networking or connections that you make to grow your business, but then bringing back tons of value to your clients and potential customers, and for me, I find that still quite an arduous task. Particularly, I can do all the other stuff, but it's really focusing on the one that's going to make me money.
Yeah. So I hear you, and I think this is a really common thing, and I think the online space particularly makes it very easy to love planning, but to hate execution. Because when we have something like a giant to-do list and we're just looking at it and there's like 20 things on there, it just feels impossible. It feels like you're trying to hike up the mountain without shoes on, and it just doesn't work. So what I'm always saying to people is have 3 things a day to do and just do 3 things each day. And that way you actually make it manageable and you don't overload your brain with things. So every day I say to people, do one money-making activity, just one. And that could be something like, okay, I'm going to go out and post that I have spaces in my calendar for people to have discovery calls with me. It could be that you send out an email to your list with a new offer. It could be that you follow up with somebody who was supposed to buy something, but they haven't paid their invoice yet. It could be anything to do with immediately generating revenue or leading to an activity that's going to immediately generate revenue in your business. That's the first thing that you should do every day, the money-making one, because most people...
So do it first. Okay.
Yeah, because the thing is, most people, they'll put out something, if you do the scary thing first, and most people are most concerned about the money-making bit. So we don't typically like talking about money. We don't typically like thinking about what it is that we could be doing to generate more revenue. That's the bit that worries us. When we put that last in the day, what happens is that all day we try and do the rest of the tasks, but really our mind's like, you've still got to do that sales thing. Oh, it's coming. It's now 5 o'clock. You can't put it off any longer. And then what happens is either we don't do it and we feel like a massive failure because we've waited all day and wasted all this energy on it, or we do it, but it's rushed and it's done at the most inconvenient time for you, for your family, for everything else going on. And so you start then to feel awkward and there's more pressure. Perhaps the kids are running around while you're trying to do a live stream and sell off the back of it. You know, perhaps your partner's like, I've made dinner. What are you doing? You know, come on, get together.
Yeah.
And actually that doesn't put you in the right headspace for making money. It doesn't put you in the right headspace for being productive or confident or anything, because you've got so many artificial factors coming in that make you feel like it's not going to work. So if you do the money making activity first, you get that out of the way, you're going to have one or two situations. Either you're going to start your day having made money. That's a winner. Automatically we feel confident, we're happy. It's quite likely then that we go, oh, well, that was easy. I'll go and do another one of those. I'll send out another email. I'll do another this. I'll do that. And it puts us into that positive frame of mind. Or somebody comes back and they say, actually, no, I'm not going to go ahead at this time. And you kind of go, oh, that wasn't as bad as I expected. Being told no wasn't horrendous. It was disappointing, but now I know where I am and I can close off that sales process and I can go and create a new one with somebody who does want to make the purchase. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's about setting yourself up for success. And it's kind of like what you're saying about people being able to let go. When we have a sales process on the go, particularly one that somebody hasn't said no to, we're holding a lot of space for that sale to come in. Even if it's consciously or unconsciously, we're like, oh, well, that person might buy that $1,000 thing, so all good. And then when it doesn't come in because we haven't followed up, we haven't chased it, we panic and we're like, oh God, it's the last day of the month and I thought that was coming in and now it's not. And what do I do? And da-da-da-da. And actually makes it harder. So if we just do those things every day, even if you're closing off the sales process as a no, you already know in advance. You've got other ways that you can go out and make the money happen, and it gives you advance warning.
Yes, yeah. And you know what I love about this, and a lot of what I've got through following your processes and being in the dotties, and is as I managed to shift this around, this whole idea about selling. I mean, obviously going from $20 an hour to, you know, the packages that I have now, but it was this, I got rid of this fear of selling or of it being sleazy or wrong because it's a sensitive market. Mm-hmm. That was fine, but I still kept tripping over. So what is a money-making exercise? And I think for me, what I loved was that realization I got that actually anything that might result in a sale is, and I'd got it in my mind that a money-making exercise was that almost like that cold call type of thing, where you have somebody ready to buy. And it's not, it's far more subtle and far more broad than that.
100%. I mean, for some people, and again, it depends on where you are and what you're doing in your business right now. For some people, if they're running a webinar today, the pitch at the end of the webinar is their money-making activity. Done. Crossed off. But people don't count it. They're like, oh, well, it's a webinar and, oh, I've got to do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, the most important thing for you on that webinar is A, deliver value to your audience, and B, to sell. That's it. You know, it's not about how many people can I get on the webinar. It's, did I do the webinar? Did I deliver value? Did I put my products and services out there in a way that made people want to buy? That's the job of the webinar. You know, and I think that's what we try and shy away from, because we're so desperate to give value to help people that we don't want to talk about the fact that we also have to help ourselves. We have to make money. Our business has to work in order for us to continue doing it. You know? Yeah.
I think the other thing that came to me as well was, now I used to call it networking. So one of the ways that I have established a good client base has been through talking with midwives. I call them, or I connect with them in one way or another, tell them what I do and what I can help their clients with. So they're sort of like the middleman, if you like. And I always saw that as networking. And it came to me only recently. I thought, actually, no, that's a money-making exercise, because I'm selling my services to them, you know, or I'm presenting my services to them as a middleman, if you like, but they already have clients. I know they have clients who they want to help and can't help in this way. And in some ways, I'm making the midwife's life easier because I'm helping their very stressed client who's calling them constantly feel better. And I thought, actually, that is a money-making exercise. And so I guess that's the other thing, isn't it, of really being a bit more linear in your thinking about what is a money-making exercise. It's not necessarily about the cash exchanging hands.
Exactly. The cash exchanging hands is just the last bit. That's the, you know, yes, that's the bit that the money comes in and wonderful kind of piece. But you've got to be thinking about the activities that generate an ROI. For you, this networking generates an ROI. You get clients, you get warm referrals, leads, etc. So that is a money-making activity. For somebody else who's going to a networking event every week, they're meeting a bunch of dog walkers, accountants, MLM people trying to sell whatever they've got there. It might not be. They might not get an ROI. If they're a lawyer and they're kind of hanging around with a bunch of dog walkers, it's very unlikely that they're going to get an ROI from that activity. So
unless their dog bites someone, perhaps.
Goes on a mad rampage. Is that right? How many people can I take out today? And it's that kind of thing, isn't it? We have to look at, where is our revenue coming from? Part of knowing and understanding what a money-making activity is about knowing where your own ROI comes from, not about going, oh, what works for Russell Brunson? What works for Tony Robbins? What works for Oprah? What works for all these people? Because what works for them may not work for you. So you've got to look at your own business and say, okay, well, what am I doing that's producing revenue? And in order to scale that revenue, I'm just going to do more of that. So for some people, like John Lee Dumas, he does a daily podcast. Now, I don't believe that John Lee Dumas does a daily podcast out of the goodness of his heart. I mean, he's a very nice man, but I don't believe he does that. He does it because he knows that the more people hear him, the more often he's in their ears, the more they buy from him. So it makes sense. Okay, great. I'm going to be in their ears daily. I'm going to be telling them about my offers daily because that's where they're going to know. I know that they're going to be listening on the commute to work. I know that that's what's going to happen. So that's his business model. Other people, there's a coach out there called Mark Mooney who he sends out daily emails. And he's like, right, okay, I know that the cash is in my email list. So every day I'm going to send them an email. And that's his money-making activity, right? Do you see what I mean? So it's like, you've got to look at what actually is working for me, what's producing revenue. Every single day at the beginning of the day, I'm going to do one of those things. Connect with 5 midwives on LinkedIn, go out there and send the daily email, go out and do the daily podcast, whatever that might look like for you. That's how people who are really successful are doing it, because they're focusing their time and their energy on the things that are guaranteed ROI generators first, rather than going, I might go and do this and I might go and do that. I might do if you're like me, I might do a twice weekly podcast and see how that goes for a few months and hedge my bets. But it is that kind of thing. So you've got to really think about what is the money-making activity you want to be doing each day. What's going to make the biggest difference to you? And then the second thing you want to be doing every day is a visibility activity. And obviously that's important for you, especially in a local market. So visibility activity is about building your brand, building the credibility of your brand and making it more well-known in the area that you want it to be. So that could be a local area, it could be an industry, it could be the online space, wherever. But it's about every day doing something that's going to help new people see your brand and identify with it. So for some people, it might be guest blogging. They might be guest blogging for the platforms. It might be that they have an aim to get on as many podcasts within their specialism as possible. It might be that they are going out and actually going to events and having like a stand at events if they're selling products and things like that. Does that make sense? So it's something that's designed to build awareness.
Yeah, so when I was in Hastings, where I was living before, one of the things that worked really well for me, not directly at the time, but it was to go to events, like you say, and have a stand. And I was part of the Bay Wellness Practice Centre, and so we would have a stand and we would just smile at people and hand out things. And some of the practitioners were there doing Reiki or massage. And so we never really had anybody sign up there and then, but they would always take away our information and come back. And it always surprised me because I thought I can't really do emotional freedom technique and dive into a trauma story in the middle of a busy exhibition. It's just not going to happen. But it was always interesting. And that was actually amazing in terms of establishing me as the expert and also getting my name known, to the point where I was being stopped on the street and people saying, oh, you're that tapping lady, aren't you? And and the other thing I had there was a radio show, which was a local radio show. And again, I could talk and directly bring people back to the wellness center and to the work I was doing. And I think that's something now that I've got to replace here. Now I've moved to Wellington because I don't have the radio show and I'm not part of the practice center. And I suppose, if I'm honest, that's a little bit scary at the moment because I'm wondering, what am I going to replace it with? I know about the networking. I know about calling midwives. and people who look after women who are pregnant. I know how to do that. But there's that other little bit. And so you're right, maybe the blogging that's going to be coming up with something, but creatively, that's going to allow me to establish myself again. Yeah.
I mean, it might even be that you host an event for local women who have gone through pregnancy related trauma.
Yes.
You might do that. You might, your new thing might be meetups, right? It might be using Meetup or Eventbrite or something like that, and commandeering a corner of a pub and bringing together 15, 20 women every month and just talking about what's happened, where are you, where do you want to be, and giving them the ability to meet other people. Because New Zealand, from my understanding, and this could be horrifically wrong, so I apologize in advance, but from my understanding, is not massively well connected. It's not like London, where you can put in a meetup for, I don't know, people who really like odd socks, and you'll get like 100 things come up. It's not like that, because it is so vast, and places are much further away. So actually, it's very unlikely that women who have been through pregnancy related trauma see it as, actually, there are probably 20 other people in my city at the moment who are going through.
No, you're absolutely right. I've had some experience of meetups before, not this particular topic, but I have run them before. And you're right, you don't get the large numbers here in New Zealand, certainly where I was before, but I've moved to a much bigger area now. So that's a really good idea. I like that one, the meetups. I've got experience of doing it. I enjoy them, and that would be easy to set up. So thank you, Jess. That's a really good one. I'm going to jot that one down.
I think it would work really well. And I think also I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about this. We were saying, so as somebody who was diagnosed with a chronic illness, the first thing that the GP says is, would you like to go and visit a support group? Would you like to be surrounded by other people? And they make you go to at least one. And I went, and honestly, it was just miserable people being really miserable. And everyone was miserable together, and I was like, oh gosh, this is like the worst. Like, as somebody who's already feeling pretty crap, like, this is just horrendous. And so there's that stigma of, if you go to the GP and you say, look, actually I've had a miscarriage and I feel really crap about it, what do I do? And they go, oh, we'll go to the support group. You're going to come out, you're going to feel a lot worse than you did in the first place. Whereas if you have a meetup and it's about, okay, we're all here, we've all been through the same experience, these are people who can actually help you move forward, rather than just want to moan and whine and bitch about it. It's a much, much different kind of atmosphere, and it's a much different way of communicating with people, and then you are there to say, if you want the one-to-one support, here we are,
Perfect. I'm excited about that, actually. That's
wow. I love those groups. I'm always attached to them. But I would try something like that. And also the local radio thing, you did really, really well with that in Hastings. Why not just approach local radio stations and see what they say? That's true. Always need content. Even local newspapers. These places are crying out for content on a daily basis. If there are stories going around in the news, if there's something that's really prevalent, make sure you're pitching them there, because they need the content, they need it first. So that's always a good idea. And then the final activity every day is a learning and development activity, and that's it. What's something that you want to learn or do or change? So for some people, and I always recommend you have one for business and one for personal. So mine, for example, at the moment, or pre our holiday, where I was going to learn to ski. That was my personal one. I was like, I've got to learn to ski because I can't embarrass myself completely. I mean, as it happens, totally did. So, like, who cares? But tried. And then professionally, it's about we're going through a rebrand in the business at the moment. So it's about, okay, what do we need to do for the rebrand, and what can I learn about the brand itself as it stands, and where we want to go, and how can we put that into place? So I think that, having something like that every day, again, from a personal standpoint, if it's something you want to get out and do, a dance class, a fitness class, going out to your own meetups, that kind of thing, it gets you out into the local community. It gets you meeting people. It gets you feeling like part of things straight away. And then from a professional perspective, it might be, you go, okay, I've got the podcast. That's really awesome. I'm going to make that my big focus this year. And I'm going to learn how to put on a thrice weekly show or a daily thing, or I'm going to go out and learn more about email marketing or sales or whatever it is that you want to pick up this year. And just every day, give yourself an hour to be like, right, okay, I'm just going to do that.
Okay, so that's good actually to say just an hour, because I have to be honest, that would be my downfall, because I love learning.
Yeah.
I love it, and I love technology. And, really what I want is to just spend all day doing that if I'm allowed. So this is what I say about that schedule.
Well, that's the thing. Again, if you notice that you're doing the sales activity first, which everyone's like, least favorite, then branding and visibility, which is actually fairly good. Most people are comfortable with that, because part of branding and visibility is helping people, so it's putting out the content that's going to help people, going into the Facebook group, giving the tip, whatever. And then the last thing is your learning and development. And it's right at the end of the day when actually you're only going to have about an hour of brain power left before you need to eat and unwind and sit with family and do all that kind of thing.
That's really good advice. Yeah. Yes. You see, because I've also followed a train of thought that says sometimes it's good to start with 1 or 2 wins. And so you do the really simple things first,
Mm-hmm.
the things that you like, tick it off. And then you do the slightly harder thing, because it gets your brain in that win, win, win. Okay, now it's easy. Yeah. So it's about choosing carefully. So really, if your sales focus is your first thing in the morning, you can still choose 2 easy sales focused things before you do the sales thing that you don't like, whatever that might be.
Exactly. You might just follow up with a previous client and say, hey, look, do you want to extend your contract working with me today?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. That's an easy win. It's that kind of thing where you might have someone outstanding on an invoice and you just follow up and say, hey, look, your invoice is due today. Can you make sure you pay that? Great. Sale done. Yeah. And it's that kind of thing where it doesn't have to be difficult. It just matters that you do it consistently.
Yes, absolutely. And I have discovered that over time, that really is the way to do it. The consistency is the thing. Yeah.
Well, that's
and that can be hard though, don't you think, sometimes when, if you're, I don't know, I mean, so many of the practitioners I get to chat with, they do it because they wanted that freedom, and some of them are quite creative and they say, I don't want to be tied down with a schedule, and I want to do different things, I want to be free, and that's a disaster really, because nothing ever gets done.
I think there is this, and I think we see it quite often in the online world. They'll go, oh, I want to be in flow and I want to do things when I want to do them, and I get that, but it's with a schedule like this, it's not saying at 9 a.m. every day you have to go and do this, and then at 10 a.m. every day you have to go and do that. It's about understanding, okay, in your day you must do these 3 things, because if you don't, your business doesn't grow. So if you are somebody who's like, okay, whatever, I just really can't face a sales activity in the morning, fine, do it in the afternoon. There's nobody stopping you, but it must get done. And that's the way that you need to look at the schedule. Is it can work for you, but you need to focus on the key areas of, actually, today I do need to still do my own learning development, rather than, oh, well, today I just want to write blogs. And I'm just going to write blogs. Yeah. And it's like, well, that's great, but what else did you do today that was going to move your business forward? There was no sales there. There was no learning and development. What did you bring to the table?
Yeah. Okay. So this idea of batching as well, which comes up a lot, doesn't it? I hear it mentioned a lot from other online business gurus, if you like, and they talk about batching everything you do. So how can you fit in batching where you're supposed to just focus on one thing and have it within a balanced schedule as well?
So, for example, that could be your branding and visibility activity. Like on a Monday, I record podcast episodes and they go in the batch. And so originally we started with like 4 episodes or whatever it was. And every Monday I record at least 1. Some Mondays, if I'm feeling particularly jazzy, I'll record 2. And then again, we're +1. We're +1 all the time. So at this point, we have a bunch in the bank that if I got sick, or if I, wanted to go on holiday or whatever, we'd still have content there, because every week, every Monday, I'm like, right, okay, got to record a podcast episode, at least 1. And that way I'm always ahead of the game. So it might be that you start that way. You go, okay, I'm going to write 4 blogs. And then every week on a day, you go, I'm going to write another blog today. I'm going to write another blog today. I'm going to write another blog. You're already batching. To batch, you don't have to be like John Lee Dumas, who does sit there 2 days of the month and just records episodes of Entrepreneur on Fire. That's how he does it. He sits there for 2 whole days. He just records a ton of episodes. And then the rest of the month, he does what he wants. If you're like that, that's cool. You could do it like that. But, personally, I'm a bit more tempered, I think, my approach. I don't think I can do like 15-hour days just to record a bunch of episodes and drive me crazy. But it's also this thing around like not context switching as well. Know your
Yes.
Know your own brain, because I think a lot of people, especially when they have these huge to-do lists, they'll try and fit everything in. So they're like, okay, today I'm going to record a podcast episode, and I'm going to write a blog, and I'm going to do some client calls, and I've got a discovery call, and I'm going to do this. And all that it does is it just overwhelms your brain completely. Your brain is like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be focusing on. And actually our brains can't multitask. It's not possible for us. So think about your week and go, okay, actually, what activities suit the days of the week that I want to be on? So for example, like me, Monday is content creation. I don't work on Mondays. I don't work with clients. I have Monday mornings off completely. And then Monday afternoons, I'll write out all my blogs. I'll record my podcast. I'll do anything that requires content creation on a Monday afternoon. And that eases me into the week. And I'm like, okay, great. Tuesdays, all about clients. Always all about clients. So it's client calls, marking any client homework, looking at any edits that need making, all that kind of thing. Wednesdays is discovery calls. Always has been. So if there are any new potential clients, it's most likely that I'm going to be talking to them on a Wednesday. And then Thursdays, client days. Fridays, I only work in the morning. And again, it's more around a Friday morning for me, is more around PR. Okay, what did we do this week? Where were we featured? What can I promote?
It makes me think I need to go back to my calendar and block out a few more things. I've got it all open. It's all open.
But this is the thing, isn't it? When it is all open, I find that it can be really difficult, because I know that if I'm in the middle of writing a great blog, regardless of the money, the last thing I want to do is stop writing that so I can do a discovery call with somebody.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
It takes me away. And then by the time I come back to the blog, I'm then in sales mode. So I'm like, oh God, now I have to think about what I was going to write. And even if I've got great bullet points and all this kind of thing, it will never feel the same as if I'd have just hashed it out for an hour and got it done.
Yes, you're absolutely true there. And I think, I'm just thinking here, that's one of the last little vestiges of my hot mess stage that I was at, where I didn't want to say no to anything, and that's hanging on there now, and I need to tighten that up as well. And because I know I don't need to do that. I know I've got other things bringing in clients. I don't actually, and it never actually worked. It never worked to be available at all times, So I just need to tighten that up. Yeah.
I would definitely do it. And I think it actually makes it easier because you set and manage client expectations from the beginning. These are my client days. These are the days when you will be able to book in and see me. That needs to work for you, or you need to make it work for you. And you set that expectation when you say, okay, well, look, these are the days that my discovery calls are on. And that day, I'll give you 100% of my attention, versus the day that you rock up just after I've done a podcast interview when I'm supposed to be rushing off to do something else afterwards. And I'm thinking, for God's sake, let's keep it to 30 minutes because, I've really don't have the time. Does that help?
Yes, it does. That's fantastic. I'm just, wonderful. As always, Jess, as always.
Wow. It's all you. It's all you. So where can people find you? Because I know that there are lots of people who listen to the podcast who resonated particularly strongly with episodes like Sarah Banks's, and obviously she's in the infertility world as well. Where can people find you if they have been through pregnancy-related trauma or early miscarriage or anything like that, and they want somebody to help them move through that story? Where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I have two websites, but the pregnancy work is from yourpregnancystory.com.
Perfect.
It's very simple. I mean, you can find me too at dianarickman.com, but the pregnancy work specifically, yourpregnancystory.com.
Perfect. And obviously, if you do want to contact Diana about EFT, please do. She is amazing. And genuinely, I've used her EFT techniques for the last 2 years. And it's the only way that I can get on a plane without having a very, very large vodka beforehand. So it does work. It really does work. All right. If you ever see me on a plane, not screaming when we're having turbulence, all down to Diana. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button, leave a little review, let us know how you're doing. And if you are stuck with your scheduling, please make sure that you check out Smart Leader Sell 90-Day Sales Planner. That really will help you stay on track. We'll see you in the next episode.